before we finish, I do have one final question for each of you, and it's the classic end of panel. How do you summarize this kind of the future of, you know, subscription revenue, and kind of how you can diversify your revenue and drive growth simultaneously? And also I'm interested in kind of what you think you've learned from hearing from the rest of your fellow panelists as well, and kind of what's been interesting to you. So we're going to kick off with the order we started. So Tanith, I'm coming to you first. Sorry to put you in the hot seat.
Thanks. Yeah, I'd sum up, I guess we've all talked a lot about putting our reader first, putting our audience first. You know, one size does not fit all, kind of choosing people and going ruthlessly after them. And I really love what Lou was saying about the kind of framework that they use for experimentation. I think I made a lot of scribbly notes when she was talking about that. And also from my perspective, it's really interesting to hear more about outside of the newsroom. I think when you're in one, your head can get a little bit lost in it. And so it's really refreshing and lovely to hear people, you know, I think we're not in a world anymore where, you know, the church and state, the newsroom doesn't think about how the business makes money. I don't think that's realistic anymore. And so, yeah, really good and interesting to hear how the kind of relationship between the content that we're producing and the readers we're going after, and how our business models are working too.
Brilliant, thank you very much. Luke, over to you.
Yeah, so yeah, I'm trying to think of things that haven't already been kind of mentioned, I think, and I'm going to try and avoid any kind of cliches, but I think listen to your audience is probably a hard thing for me to get away from, because I think this past year has created huge societal behavioural shifts, many of which won't disappear or revert to what we had previously. I saw a really fun post from Google Trends earlier, which is underlying how we're all now sort of looking for a better future more than we are wishing to return to the past, and had a great chart which showed that how to change the world has been searched twice as much as how to go back to normal in 2021. And I think that's quite representative of what B2B audiences are feeling across all industries. Of course, some things haven't changed. People want trusted, quality news and insights that are relevant to them and their jobs. And they want to be able to access that information as efficiently as possible. But some things have changed. Another reference of things that I was looking at, I noticed the AOP and put something out on the number of US publishers that are now adding more programs to their sort of digital education portfolios, following that kind of interest spurred by the pandemic. So being nimble and being able to move with the times is going to be really critical, I think, over the coming year. And for me, I was to give a specific example that's, again, probably fairly obvious, but audience surveying led by editorial teams we found to be really useful over the past year. And with lockdowns kind of finally easing, now's maybe the time to check back in with that audience, find out what they want and need, what they find most valuable about your brand, and also what they could find valuable about your brand if you were to offer it, because that gives you great editorial content and insights, but it also helps ensure that everything you do for that audience is hitting the mark and future proof.
Fantastic, thank you very much. Lou, next to you, please.
Thank you. Yeah, so there are many things that have been said, and that I took a lot of notes as well. But if there are three things maybe that really struck my mind, I think the first one is about now with the changes of accessing to the content in a digital way, the audience are wider, larger, and not just one. So the need for segmenting and understanding the different types of readers and what they want. So that segmentation aspect is a key one to me. I think the second one I really liked, especially with Tanith and Luke was saying about how it's not just content, but it's everything which is around content, how you access to the content, at what time, what you can build as a value proposition around content. I think Luke was mentioning, communities that you could be building around content. So there's a lot of value that you can build, which, you couldn't a few years ago. And I think it's really important to acknowledge that and take that into consideration when you're trying to build a value proposition. And I think the last point also that I will remember is the comment about, not because you have that huge digital real estate, you have to use everything. So we know, resources are scarce. it's important to make choices and focus on what really matters. So the idea of making really strong choices at some point, and really focusing resources on what create value, and value over volume, and not just going all crazy about building all those content that isn't going to be very valuable for a lot of people, I think is a very important message as well.
Brilliant, thank you. That's very interesting. And Rupert, finally to you for your summary and learnings, please.
Sure. So 3 things. I think I really like this idea of delivering different content to people at different times of day. This idea that you don't want to read, necessarily everything in the morning, or certain types of articles in the morning. That might be different from in the evening, for example. I thought that was a really interesting idea, and don't just bombard people with the same content all day long. I also, like what Luke said around that sort of sense of community and using that to build brand loyalty. And we see this with sort of membership schemes, where not only do you get access to the content, but you also get, other benefits. It might be events, it might be, other physical things as well. And I think that can really help, especially for niche and B2B publishers. And the final thing was what Tanish said around, treat every user in a personalized way. But I also really like the way in which, she was saying that you can create these targeted campaigns around driving subscription and engagement amongst women, but that doesn't mean we're ignoring everybody else. We can actually manage multiple audience segments at the same time. So.
Fantastic. Thank you very much to everybody. I will say, for me moderating it, I'm from a kind of firmly advertising background, so it's really interesting and great to have a subscription conversation and kind of how you're moving that direction and balancing it. And also, I rarely get the opportunity to speak to people from the commercial side of this model and the editorial side. So it's really good to hear it from that perspective as well. And Exchange Wire, we are a fellow, we're a B2B publisher, so kind of the understanding around the value versus volume, the agility, the community that Luke mentioned. These are all kind of very, very interesting things, and I personally find it fascinating to chat to you all. So I want to say thank you so much to our audience, first of all, for listening, and to those that submitted questions as well. And then very much thank you to our wonderful panelists, Tanith, Luke, Lou and Rupert.